Hi, everyone, and welcome to Mavericks. When I talk about 25 years of the work that I've done, of all the Mavericks I have met, today I probably have the Maverick sitting right in front of me. It's none other than my old friend, Sarinder Unambu. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure whether I should take that as an insult or a compliment, but we'll go with compliment.
It was meant to be a compliment. When I met you probably 18 years ago,
Yeah.
walking in through the corridors of Linea Aqua, the smile, the enthusiasm,
The hair.
the hair too, I never forgot that. And it is wonderful to have you with us when we celebrate 25 years. I probably want to get to know you better in terms of people who watch this, to know the life and work of Sarinder Unambu and the lessons that we can learn to make ourselves much better. So to begin with, who was Sarinder Unambu as a kid?
My God, that's a rather open-ended question. I must say that I had a fairly active childhood. I was one of those kids who could never stand in one place. And even in school, I played multiple sports, and my mother used to always say I was jack of all trades, master of none, and which is probably true. And so right through school, my life revolved more around sports than around anything else. My academic performance was probably marginal at best, but I managed to get through and had a lot of fun doing it and had a few ups and downs in life, but here we are.
Sarinder will always be known as a sports person.
I hope so. I haven't retired yet.
Obviously. And of course, we're celebrating these days of a particular sport as well. Talk to me about what sports did to you in preparation of life.
So I think, that it's very cliched when you say that sports gives you all these, to be able to work with the team and all that stuff, which is very true. But everybody knows that to be a part of a team, to be able to support each other, all that stuff comes with sport. But I think for me, what I learned most was, I would like to think probably a little better than average, but not good enough to be the best. And for me to be the best at what I was doing at that time, of course, if we're talking about schoolboy level, we're not talking about anything more exciting than that.
Sure.
To be the best at that time, I really had to work hard. I really had to work hard. Okay. And I think that work ethic where I used to train in the pouring rain, in the blazing sun, whatever it was, I would train alone. I'd train, if I was bad at a particular thing that I was doing, I'd try to get better by working really hard alone, even at home. Okay. I'd skip 4,000, 5,000 a day, 5,000, sometimes 10,000 a day skips just to get my footwork going. Okay. So just things like that. I learned to work hard on my own to get better at whatever I was doing. Okay. And I don't think I have lost that yet. Okay. I really like to, if I'm taking something on, I like to be good at it. I hate not being good at something. Okay. So I'd rather not do it at all than be crap at it.
Okay. So it was a self-driven thing?
It was very self-driven, yeah.
And at that moment in time, who were your heroes?
Well, I had several. I mean, if you looked at, I went to Royal, so I had a whole host. I came from a family of Royalists and Trinitians. Sure. So a lot of my cousins, I was the youngest of all the male cousins. Okay. There were 3 or 4 who played for Trinity, there were 2 or 3 who played for Royal, rugby and cricket, so those were my immediate heroes. And then of course people like Vijay Mallasekar, and one of my cousins was Jagat Fernando, who was a legend at Royal College, and probably after that as well. So these were the people that I admired and wanted to emulate when I was growing up, and that's what I tried to do.
And your career has many types of twists and turns if we end up in apparel.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, it's kind of indicative of how I set about looking at what I wanted to do in life. Okay. I didn't look at a career as I wanted to be a banker or an engineer or a doctor or anything like that. Okay. I had aspiration for my life. Okay. And I kind of modeled my career to meet those aspirations that I wanted for my life, rather than look at a career as something that I wanted to be good at.
Okay.
So my career was almost like the stepping stone or the pathway that got me to what I wanted to do in life.
Okay.
So even now, my aspirations are more for what do I want my life to be like in the next 5 years, or in the next 10 years.
Okay.
Which career I'm doing or what I'm doing to get there, is part luck, part design. So
How much of it is design?
more than I'd like to admit, I work pretty hard towards designing my future, and I was fortunate that I found my way into apparel because I really love that. I love it as an industry. But also how I managed to get to MAS, to start working at MAS with absolutely no apparel qualifications. And then from there now to move on to a different country and a different organization.
Sure.
To take on something that I feel is going to be a lot more challenging and a lot bigger than anything that I've ever done in my life before, has all been a part of me somewhat knowing how I wanted to get there, and somewhat identifying places or locations or countries and saying, I'd like to work here, I'd like to do this.
Are there secrets that you can share with us of how to get there?
Well, it's not really a secret as such. People believe in all kinds of things, in gods and I don't believe in any of that shit. So as far as I'm concerned, I believe in the power of the mind. And whether you want to think that you're harnessing the power of God or the power of the universe or the power of a frog in a well, it doesn't matter. As long as your mind tells you you can do something and you believe that you can do it, I believe it can happen. So it's like the power of manifestation. So that's something that I believe in. And I believe that if we really, manifestation is basically what you're doing is you're channeling your energies to going from one place to another place and making it happen. And some people say that that's, God made it happen. No, the tooth fairy made it happen. I don't care, as long as it happens.
It happens.
No? So in from my life, what I have always believed in is, if I have really believed in something that I'm able to do something and I want to do something and I focus my energies towards it, I found that in a weird roundabout way, it's happened, by and large.
Excellent. In this day and age when we are fighting so many wars, economic, social, political, geo, environmental, such resilience and ability to channel your energies become that much more important. And yet, many give up halfway through. They almost get to the 99% and say, well, maybe I'll never get there, and let loose. What could we tell those people?
See, sometimes it's important to know when to cut your losses. Sometimes it's important to say, I am going to cut loose. See, I'm not getting there. Because otherwise, you may spend a lot of your life, a lot of your energies trying to get to a place that you're really not meant to be and you're really not going, and it's taking too much time.
Sure.
So sometimes you may have to have a plan B and a plan C.
Yeah.
But what I feel is, if you truly believe that there is something that you want to do, you need to stick with it. You need to believe it can happen. And you need to make sure that you're working towards making it happen.
Yeah. As you move on to the next part of your career and life, a funny word that I'm dying to use, but I hate how you look at it, would be to discuss with you about retirement. How does retirement resonate with you as a word?
Really fucking badly. Absolutely out of my vocabulary. Never going to retire. Never
Talk
going
to me
retire.
about it.
Why should you retire? What is retirement? Right? What is the whole concept of retirement, right? In the past, you worked till you were, I don't know, mid-50s, and then, you kick back and I don't know what the fuck you did after that.
Yeah.
But you sat at home and, you retired.
That's right.
I feel that people have a hell of a lot more that they can offer. And I think being a single dimensional individual where you go to work and you go home and you sit at home and, do not, that's kind of an archaic concept that there is no work and then life.
Yeah.
It's an archaic concept that people still believe in.
Yeah.
Good for them. I don't.
Sure.
I believe that we have a life. Work is a part of that life.
Yep.
Your leisure is a part of that life. Your family is a part of that life. Your hobbies are a part of your life. That life. Everything is a part of that life. It's how you balance that out Is that what makes you either happy or miserable or, fulfilled or rewarded or whatever you want to call it? Retirement means that you're taking one segment of that life and saying, I'm done. And then you're focusing everything on something else. Fine, if that works for you, that's fine. I don't want to retire.
Yeah.
One of the things I really enjoy doing is doing what I do for a job. I love running plants. I love running companies and creating beautiful products. And also now we have a challenge of being able to create products that, to coin a phrase, well, I'm not going to use that phrase because it's a secret that I'm going to keep for myself when we launch later. But let's just say that the impact to planet that we have right now can be completely reversed if we do it the right way. And what we are in the process of doing right now, and I've got some extremely brilliant people that I'm associated with now, people that I have that blow my mind away in terms of their experience and what they are doing in India, which is opening a whole new paradigm of thought for me and opportunities for me to create ways of manufacturing product that's not going to harm the planet and be good for people, and there's a lot that we can do. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I'm just so excited that at the tender age of 59, I've got an opportunity to start something and do something like that. And as I grow older, as we all must, I think the one thing that I would like to do is shift my focus from operational involvement to maybe a more mentoring, guiding, strategy kind of role, or like be a thought leader or something like that. Or I hate the word consultant. I'm sorry, with all due respect, right? But the word consultant has different meanings. But the way I see it, I'd like to go and offer my services and the experience that I have to people who want to grow their business.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So that is probably my next iteration, and that is maybe 10, 15 years down the line. I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah.
Because the next 10 years, there's a lot that I can look forward to that is exciting.
Sure.
But the one thing is, from an organization's point of view, holding on to old guys or women, there is one danger. If those people who are aging in an organization, who continue to age within that organization, haven't been able to change with the needs of the time, the needs of the people. I'm working with people who are now joining my organization and starting to work with me. I have cavities that are older than them. They're, they're so young, and if I can't think like them, and if I can't understand where they're coming from, and then be able to marry that with the kind of experience that I have to get the best out of them and the best of the organization, I become a stumbling block to them and the organization. Absolutely. So it's important that as we grow older, we learn new skills, we continue to develop ourselves, and that's where people like you come in and teach us new skills, teach us new ways to do the same things that we have been doing.
Sure.
Otherwise, we become stumbling blocks. So it's important for us to evolve as well in this process and never retire.
Absolutely.
The mind has to be kept occupied. We are a generation now, I think I'm a slightly older generation than you,
Small margin.
that's going to live into the 90s.
Yeah.
Our children are going to live into the hundreds and 100 plus. So you retire at 55, what are you going to do for 50 years?
Yeah.
Your savings is not going to take care of that.
That's right.
You have to forget the living part of it, but keep your mind occupied. If you don't keep your mind occupied, this thing is like any machine. If you don't use it, it's going to stop working. Yes. And using it means learning new things, learning new skills, expanding your horizons.
Absolutely.
So
the reason why I asked that question is when I look at people who long to retire, when they get to retirement, they're not necessarily very happy. And this retirement seems like putting someone to pastures. It's done and dusted. So what they do is they talk about a year more, extension more, 2 more. And I love the concept that you said there is only life and the work is a part of it. And if you have the work-life balance, you don't have to retire ever. You just change what you do to suit ability at that time.
the mix is changed a little bit.
Mix is changing, yeah.
See, people who are waiting to retire are waiting to retire for a purpose, right? It's because they are not living their best life right now. They have sacrificed a big chunk of what they want to do, what they aspire to do, what they yearn to do, to work.
Yeah.
Thinking that I can work now, and then at 60 I'll retire, and then I'll do what I want to do. What if at 59 and 364 days you get run over by a bus and you're paralyzed for the rest of your life? What have you done? How do you look back on your life? What have you done?
Yeah.
Live now. We have a gift. Life is a gift.
Yes, yes.
If we
yes,
don't
yes.
use what we have now, when are we going to use it?
Yeah.
And this body isn't getting any younger. So you might as well use it while you can.
You and I have heard many things about work-life balance. Too many theories, too much of talk.
Absolutely.
But I yet have to find many of the mavericks I met all of a sudden doing a board meeting while in the middle of a jungle, but has equal
Peacock
amount of
shouting at the
peacock
back.
shouting at the back. But still having that attention span enough to handle that moment when they really need to. I tell my people that I had the pleasure of working with for the last 25 years, you have choices in life and you have options in life. Options in life and choices. And like you said, you got to take them. What's preventing many to do that? They only talk about it. We all know all the theories. We know that there are options. And yet we are in fear or denial. From your experience, what's stopping people from doing that?
Insecurity, primarily.
Yeah.
Lack of confidence in your team. Insecure about how your superiors see you as an individual. Because I remember I was working for an organization and most people would come out to see whether the boss's car had left the car parking lot. Until the boss left the parking lot, they wouldn't take their car out because they weren't sure that they were working late. Bullshit. I was one of the first to leave all the time, right? So I just feel that sometimes we focus on the wrong indicators.
Yeah.
The KPIs are all wrong in whether somebody is doing a job or not. Somebody coming to work at 8 in the morning, or I used to go to work at 6:30 and leave by 4.
Okay.
Work hours were 7:30 to 5:30, but I used to come in 6:30 and leave by 4:30 I used to go, because that's how I wanted to balance my life out. Thankfully, I had very mature, understanding leaders, and also I delivered.
Yeah.
Now, lots of people don't want their staff to take time off, especially at senior level, is because we have this very hierarchical system of management, hierarchical way of managing teams. We need to be in control. We need to know what everybody is doing, which is rubbish, right? So just because somebody is seated at a desk from 8 to 5 doesn't mean that person is working. That person could be surfing the porn channels for all we know, right, on their mobile phones, or talking to their girlfriends or mistress's girlfriend, or whoever. Ultimately, what we need to do is measure them for what they're supposed to do and how they're performing in the organization.
Yeah.
Now, whether they perform in the organization, there are certain job roles, now even in our industry, certain job roles required hand on product or hand on machine, or immediate face-to-face involvement with the customer, say for example. You can't get around those things. Those you had to find ways to balance time out for those individuals. But for most of the others, whether they sat behind the desk or sat on a tree in the Hiyattakandiya, it didn't make a difference. As long as they were working, the work got done. So that kind of flexibility is important in this day and age. I think especially the younger generation expects a lot more out of their life than just coming and sitting at a desk and going home with a paycheck. They want to be able to feel that they are impacting something, a greater purpose than themselves. They want to feel that they are adding value to their lives. I know this all sometimes sounds a little airy-fairy, but I think it's really important because I feel that way. I certainly wouldn't want to do a job where I'm expected to come and mark a register at 8 o'clock in the morning and can't leave till 5:30 without somebody raising an eyebrow. I'd leave that organization in a heartbeat.
Okay.
And I think it's also, that gets me to another thing, is lots of people feel like they are tied down and locked into an organization, and regardless of what the organization is doing, you stick on because you're scared. Sometimes, regardless of where you are and what position you are in and what stage of your life in, you've got to assess where you are and think, this organization is not going where I want it to go. I don't want to be a part of this journey. Time for me to go.
Yeah.
So, long roundabout
No,
kind
it's interesting
answer, but-
because as much as those sentences are known by people, I'm always puzzled why, when it comes to doing it. and
Fear,
your explanation-
insecurity.
Insecurity.
Yeah, lack of confidence in themselves.
Yeah. I remember watching this podcast where you spoke about your bucket list. Snow, photographing snow leopards, touring. Was it Tasmania or Tanzania?
Tanzania, yeah.
Were you able to fulfill those?
All done.
All done.
Those are done. No, but the bucket list is not done.
Okay.
That's constantly evolving. Yeah.
What's new?
Lots. I'm moving to India.
Yep.
So I just want to really understand and immerse myself in Indian wildlife and really understand, and photograph as much as I can.
Okay.
So I've got a list of a whole bunch of parks, starting from the Run of Kutch to Kaziranga, to going back and photographing snow leopard in a different location.
Oh, wow.
Various things. I mean, the list is so long. That's just one thing that I want to do.
Okay.
Travel is also a big part of it, and I travel with my family a lot, so I like to do those things together. But the list is constantly evolving. It's not a list that I'm ticking off and finishing.
Yeah.
I'm ticking off and adding. So I tick 3 off and add 4.
What does that bucket list do for you?
Gives me something to look forward to, something to drive towards,
Yeah.
something to be excited about.
Hmm.
And some of it, it's not all fun and games.
Okay.
That bucket list has quite a few things that are career related
Okay.
as well.
In terms of information,
Mm-hmm.
keeping in touch, learning new things, are you an avid reader or do you discuss a lot of things with people or?
I am a reader, an avid reader. I read all the time. I have a big library of books, but I don't read business books.
Okay.
I rarely read business books. Even if I do, I'll read bits and pieces from them. Everybody has a theory. I think you need to learn, well, there are 2 types of business books. One are the very philosophical kind of approaches to living life and doing stuff. I generally don't read those. But others are guidelines of how to do things in a particular situation. Those I try to learn because you gather knowledge from
Sure.
that. So you balance things out. But I love reading travel books, history books. I don't really read too many novels or anything like that at the moment. I used to as a kid, but not now. But yes, that is one. And as my partner and my kids would say, my head is full of a bag full of rubbish trivia.
Okay.
All kinds of crap is in here.
Okay.
Because if I ever even think of something in my mind while driving, I Google it.
Okay.
And I'm constantly gathering information on whatever crosses my mind from a curiosity point of view. Social media used the right way and the internet used the right way is just an incredible tool.
Sure.
Not just for gathering information, but for personal brand building, for organizational brand building, for communication.
Sure.
It's an incredible tool. It's just bastardized by a lot of people and just ruined.
Sure.
But
Yeah, when you spoke about tools, I can't but not ask you about the conversation that is going on about ChatGPT and all these tools that are
Yeah.
out there.
incredible.
Incredible.
Absolutely incredible. It's something that I'm excited to be able to understand better.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to create a few challenges at education level.
Yes.
And what's funny is the way around it is going to be going back to basics, like we went to school with a textbook and a paper and a pen to be able to respond, do your exams
Yeah.
physically.
Yeah.
That's almost knocking people backwards a little bit. But I think as a tool to, it's still evolving as a tool to be able to even conduct businesses and do research or whatever it may be. Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. It's almost frightening, but I think used the right way, it's an amazing opportunity for us to use and not be intimidated by, because while there is a lot that can be got out of ChatGPT, a lot of what we do still requires human
Yes, it
brain
does.
to be able to intervene and say, you know, this is what we're doing and physically do stuff.
Oh, there are a lot of commentary about positives and negatives.
Absolutely, and there will be. It's new. Everybody is like, whoa, what's going to happen? And
Yeah. It goes back to.
but that's where the world is heading, and we have to be able to understand it and embrace it in the best way possible.
Absolutely. Not to bring it down to that level, but even when they came up with automatic gears for a vehicle,
Absolutely.
everybody
My
hated
God,
it. My
yeah.
God, that's the end of the automobile.
Autofocus cameras, autofocus cameras also were like that. You're like, my God, the skill is being taken out of photography. My grief, good grief, I
But
can't
we've-
imagine not
have
having
changed.
autofocus cameras now. Yeah.
Yeah. You've seen so many organizations, culture,
Yeah.
clarity, teamwork, responsibility, all those ingredients come into play. You're just about to set up a new operation in a new culture. And culture to me is the state or could be the culture that you want to evolve into in terms of thought. Talk to me about how culture comes into conversation with you.
So culture, to me, very simply put, in an organization, is behavior that is accepted, right, and encouraged. It's how people behave in that, and that creates an organizational culture. Very simply put.
Yeah.
You can expand on that
Sure.
in multiple ways. What is tolerated, what is not tolerated, what is encouraged, what is developed, what is trained, what is coached, all that builds your culture. And I think what is really important, and this is the part that I'm really excited about going and learning, is going into a new massive market like India with such deep-rooted history and culture and distinct cultures from state to state, distinct cultures from town to town, education that goes back centuries, if not thousands of years. So a very different setup to what I have been used to doing here.
Sure.
To be able to go there and build an organizational culture that will be revolutionary, which is what we want to do when we go there. Because one of the things, if you take India as an industry, or as a country, most industries in India right now are way out there in the future. They are doing so brilliantly well. Apparel has still a lot of catching up to do. And I think some of the more advanced apparel organizations in Sri Lanka have done that because we have been working with demanding international client bases that have expected a certain standard that has been set. Now, India mostly has manufactured for the Indian market. So by and large, they have been fairly insulated from the needs and the demands of the foreign customers. So I feel now there's an opportunity to go and put some of that in there and really bring the Indian apparel industry that is not thought of as one of the primary employment opportunities. Like the kids coming out of university and saying, hey, I'm leaving university and I'm going to join an apparel, the apparel industry. That's like number 4 on the list, 5 on the list, maybe 10. So let's make it number 1. Let's make it top of the mind. Let's make it a hot industry to be a part of.
Wow. Is technology taking?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be.
Any secrets you can let
No.
in? I knew that was coming. Yeah.
Lots of plans.
Lots of technology. Okay.
Lots of technology.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
let's just say that it'll be 10 years ahead of where I have been.
All right. I visited. I spent some time in India, north, south, east, west, in the logistics business, and I visit some of these factories. And recently, I saw a Jeep being manufactured, which to me looks so look-alike of a Hummer. It was amazing, and I was going, wow. So they had the capacity.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And they had the know-how to do it as well.
It's very exciting and it's developing at a pace that is almost frightening.
Yeah, yeah. Moving to a very different topic. Because we were talking about India, we talk about Sri Lanka. I still see stratas and levels, elitists and not, because of your school, because of your color, because where you come from. People get treated differently. And I see it in Sri Lanka. I see bits and pieces, north and south of people, different people. What is your thought on that?
It's inherent. I mean, it's there in every strata of society right across probably every country in the world. And the more you read about countries in the world, you know, how they were in the 70s, 80s, 90s, how they have evolved, race, religion, all, you know, all those are predominantly the big dividers, religion being the biggest divider, which is one of the reasons why I'm just like, I don't want a part of this. Race, another one, regions, where they come from, all that stuff is are big dividers. They are there. But ultimately what happens is most of us grow up programmed. We are born with a completely empty hard disk, right? And that is filled by biases of our parents, the some communities we live in, society we associate with, schools we go to. We are biased with those things. So I think it's really important that as we develop as human beings, as we get more mature as human beings and older, hopefully wiser, you realize what the biases are and you stop acting based on those biases, and that becomes really, really important in an organization and how you treat people. I have consciously unprogrammed the biases that I was programmed with throughout my life. I still have a hell of a long way to go, but I'd like to think that I have progressed a lot more than I was, say, 20 years ago, or 25, 30 years ago, maybe. And it's continuously work in progress. And if I catch myself thinking, bloody, you know, so and so, you know, one of those buggers, you know, straight away I realize, hey, you know, back off from that thought.
Yeah.
You need to think of this differently.
Yeah.
So I think it's up to us as individuals to break that down, and I think these biases that we have, especially in a small community like the Sri Lankan business community, he went to the right school, Machang, he is, you know, he is one of us, Machang, and you know, it's bullshit. You're shutting yourself out to so many talented people that are coming through this education system who are actually going to university to study and not stand on the road and block traffic. There are some brilliant kids coming out, given a chance, they will perform incredibly well. Some of the most talented people that I have ever had the privilege of working from came from schools and came from places in the country that we hadn't heard of. They're brilliant.
Yeah.
So imagine if we shut the door saying, not the right colored tie, young man, you know,
It's not going to work.
who's losing out here?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that we are conscious of the biases that we have and open ourselves up to accepting people for who they are and what they are. And that's tough because we are the most programmable machine that there is, and most of us are brainwashed by parents, teachers, you know, whoever, to think a certain way. And we have to think for ourselves and think, is that the right way to be thinking about this?
Yeah. Conditionings are
Yeah.
amazing.
Yep.
I made a statement recently that religion to me sounded like organized crime. We
Worse.
kill more people
Yeah.
in the name of religion
Absolutely.
than anything else.
Absolutely.
And to get to the core of
Yeah.
spirituality without labels. It's easier said than done though.
Easier said than done, but I think that is where the secret lies. Because ultimately, if you, I don't want to go down this religious route because I'm so skeptical and I can become really nasty when I talk about it. So, but yeah, spirituality is where it lies, and that doesn't have a, you know, religion is like somebody described it, it's like being a goldfish and looking at the world from inside out. And spirituality is like looking inwards, or some nonsense like that.
I met your son the other day,
Which one?
the younger.
Right,
And,
yeah.
And I was having a good chat with him, and I looked at him and looked at my two kids who are very, very young, the toddlers. And yet I didn't have a fear of their future because I knew it will evolve.
Yeah.
I only needed to spend the present moment with
Yeah.
them. That moment that I'm there.
Absolutely.
Many live with different types of fears. I have my own. If there was such a thing, what would those fears be for you, sir?
So I fear for the future of Sri Lanka, for example, and there are lots of fears. You know, I'm scared of heights.
Okay. Didn't
I'm
know
scared
that.
of waterfalls.
Okay.
I'm scared of all kinds of crap. I'm scared of dark places, claustrophobic.
Okay.
So there are all kinds of fears. But no, not to take light of what you're trying to say. But you know, if
No, but
we
that's
start
interesting.
getting
Someone who's an adventurer.
I'm terrified of spiders.
Oh, really? The guy who goes all over.
Terrified of spiders. I
Oh.
freak out.
Don't say.
But if we start to get so paranoid and fearful of our children's lives and their health and their well-being and their education and everything like that, you're going to stifle them. You're going to stifle them because you're going to be so controlling of trying to make sure that they're going in the right direction. I think you need to be able to give them guidance. You need to be able to give them encouragement and support. You need to be there for them to be able to speak with them, and they should know that they are there as a sounding board to you. And ultimately, there is a lot that you've got to have confidence that you will provide it's like if you're going to grow strawberries, right? You're going to create the malpathia. You're going to put the right amount of fertilizer, dig it up nicely, get rid of all the stones and rocks and things like that, and put the strawberries in there to grow. That's what you're doing. You're creating an environment for your children to thrive. Yeah. You're not trying to say, okay, no, grow this way, grow that. Let them grow. Let them be who they are. Yeah. They are individuals. They need to find their individuality. You can't program them and say, no, that's the type of person I don't want you to hang out with. This is the type of person I don't want you to hang out with. Don't do this, don't do that. You know? We grew up like that. And it took a lot for us to break those shackles because we had very controlling, that generation of parent was very controlling, and it was, no, this is the way you're doing it. And I still remember when I was leaving a local blue chip to join another local blue chip, but in apparel. My father, who had worked in the corporate environment all his life, looked at me and said, so you're basically leaving a corporate job to become a glorified tailor. So those biases, and they have pre-programmed views of the world. I think it's very unfair if we force those down our children's throats and into their heads. Yeah. We got to let them develop on their own.
Of course.
But we need to support them, provide education, give them right nutrition, security, safety, all that, and let them thrive.
Absolutely.
I'm very proud of my two sons. They've had to deal with fair amount of crap in their lives as a result of a nut job father, but we are very close, and that's one of the highlights of my life is being able to spend time with them.
And I met you with them long years ago, remember? So when I think of what I have done for 25 years, thank God I never call myself a consultant. I call myself a trainer, then a teacher.
Yeah, absolutely, mentor, much better words.
Coaching. So coaching is about helping people with their journey. Discussion of a creative nature so that they can optimize themselves, if I'm going to use a somewhat of a definition. Companies keep on spending a lot of money on development and training and coaching, and it's a good thing. But I see more and more people are so distracted with problems of now. The amount of effort the individual puts in to be able to understand where they need to go in their life is sometimes reducing. Have you seen this in your professional life?
What I've seen in my professional life, sadly, is people taking less responsibility for their own success. They expect the organization to make them successful. Yeah. And I think that is a sad thing, because ultimately you should take control of and you should be responsible for your life. Yeah. And if you don't feel that you're happy, I was in a job for 22 years and I could have happily cruised on for a few more years in that organization. But I realized that it was time for me to go because it wasn't good for me. Yeah. And I went, right? Now, so many people said, what the hell, at your age, what's this nonsense? You have to be able to take a decision and live by it and make it work for you. Yeah. So, this training thing, I think it's really important. When I was telling you before about what I read, I like to read things that add value to me and help me in my decision making as a leader, as a human being, make me better informed, more knowledgeable. Sure. What are we as humans if we are not, if we can't if you don't have value in us. We're just empty vessels, right? So I think the more information and the more knowledge that we gather and the more experiences that we gather, we have more, there's more of us to give the world. Travel, for example, you know, photography that we do, you know, the time I spend out in the jungles, the people I associate with, the people I meet, the conversations I have, those are learning experiences all the time. But ultimately, if I'm not getting the material that I feel is needed for myself to become a better human being, a better leader, a better employee, employer, husband, father, whatever, I need to go out and get it. And that's where you have to say, guys, I feel that I'm lacking in this area of my development. And I need training. I need to get some kind of exposure here. And that gets to one other really important point, Niroshan, where I feel that something that we never do is, no, that's not fair. A lot of us don't do adequately is self-analysis. We don't sit down and audit ourselves, analyze ourselves and say, okay, you're good in this area. This area is not bad. You are really shit in this area. You know? So either you get trained in that area or you complement with somebody who's very talented in that area to come and work with you and make you look good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is your responsibility.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
And how many times I've called you and said, I need help. And then you don't give me an invoice and I refuse to have any training sessions. So it never happens.
I've always counted you as a friend, so invoice is the last thing I want to do. I use this word reflective very loosely, but to me, when a person sits on a problem and he is analytical by nature, he's sitting on a problem looking for root causes. He never sees himself as the problem sometimes. You step out to sometimes look at the problem and say, maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way, or I'm asking the wrong questions, or maybe I am actually the problem. And this reflective thing, whether that comes from religious people, textbooks or otherwise, or the gurus, they call themselves gurus, it's still worthwhile, like you said, analyzing. And I take the time sometimes through psychometric tests and all sorts of variable tests. But you know, don't you? Inside you, you know.
Yeah. So I think those are things that you have to understand about yourself and say, okay, I'm going to watch out for this behavior.
Yeah.
But that takes a little bit of wisdom in how you're managing yourself. And I think ultimately there are things that you need to do to become better all the time. One is periodically sit down with people and say, okay, what can I be better at?
Okay.
You know, your colleagues, for example, or your partner, or your wife, or your husband, or your, you know, whatever, my children.
Yeah.
I you know, need to sit with them sometimes and say, okay, what can I do better?
Yeah.
Am I good enough as, you know, a father or whatever?
Sure.
You know, we may not go into that amount of detail, but, you know, I do get their feedback on things that I do or say or whatever, because to me it's important to have that reflection of someone telling you, no, you shouldn't have done that. And you need to learn to listen, that's one. And quite apart from that, you need to also analyze situations that maybe didn't go right and think, did I step on that person's fragile ego? And did that damage the whole thing? Could I have done it better? Could I have made them feel like they are really good at what they do, even though they're shit? And could I have got the job done? So you just learn to manipulate your way through. But more than manipulation, I think authenticity in who you are and how you approach your interpersonal relationships, your leadership challenges, that is important. You need to be an authentic person.
Sarinder, that's an interesting thing. Here we are talking about authentic leadership and those models, or at least the word authentic, the real essence of me. And yet in this whole world of political, organizational, political, hierarchical structures, managing the two are not easy. Navigation through these things. And you've gone through all of this at different stages in your life. Younger people who we talk to turn around and
5
say,
points to you
5
there.
points.
Yeah. Okay.
Say, you know, you're telling me be me.
but I want to be straight up and tell you something. The closest I get is, yeah, you can say it, but the way you say it, how you say it, when you say it, you probably have to be mindful of. But you probably still say it if I'm on this side. But then there is the organizational politics. Where do you draw the line? Each circumstance is really
Leadership,
different. But
progress by bulldozer. It's very tough based on the leadership of the organization. If you're in an organization that encourages diverse opinions, people having, disagreements, being able to talk about what you agree with and what you don't. It takes mature leadership to be able to do that. Takes secure, mature leadership to be able to do that. Most organizations don't have it. There have been times where I have brought, say, in a board meeting or something, where I brought something up and then I get a phone call or text message saying, I don't want you to bring that up at this meeting. Why did you bring this up at this meeting? That is total insecure leadership, right? And insecure management. So when an organization has that type of culture, it's time for you to get the hell out of there. That's one. Also, if you are really good at what you do and you are delivering above and beyond the expectation, and if your targets are 8 and you are giving 12s, you tend to be able to say it as it is a lot easier than if you're a shit performer.
Yeah.
So be really good at what you do and you'll get away with murder.
Okay.
Not murder,
Yeah.
but you'll get away with being able to voice your opinion in a way that may not be tolerated by an underperformer.
Yeah.
Having said that, when you have weak leadership and insecure leadership, time to leave.
Sure. And I have also the privilege of working with a lot of family businesses, or today they are very large conglomerates all over the world, not necessarily only in Sri Lanka. But they still have that family orientation, or centered on one or two individuals, most often one. When it's that, I see political intelligence being more important for survival.
Yeah. If there is one decision maker, the ultimate decision maker, everybody sucks up to that person. But if that person is smart enough to really understand who's getting the job done, you won't need to suck up to that person.
Yeah.
So you have to have confidence that that person, whoever that may be, whether it's, I don't want to name people here, but, these leaders of big family establishments in Sri Lanka, they didn't get there by being stupid.
Yeah.
They know who's working. They know what the setup is. So if you're working and you're performing, they know you're a valuable asset to them.
Yeah.
So that level of confidence again is something that is important, to be able to,
Sure.
be outspoken. Sometimes, people can be controversial and outspoken just for the hell of it. And that can become a habit. That can become a habit that is very dangerous sometimes, because it's quite addictive to piss people off in the work environment, especially if you aren't that fond of them. But I think it's really important that you are conscious about what are you trying to get out of saying what you're saying. Don't just say something to piss somebody off. I mean, I was going to say just between us, but there's going to be, I don't know how many thousand people watching this, so I'll shut up. But I won't quote, I'll reverse on what I was going to say. But, when you're making a decision, sometimes the decision you have to think of, because it can be detrimental to yourself. Yeah. If you're making a decision in a situation where the environment you have been in is not great, the first thing you need to think about is, am I making this decision because I just want to tell these guys to piss off and walk away, or am I doing this because it's really good for me?
Do you go to battle?
Yeah, you have to pick your battles, pick your times, and lose a battle here and there, win the war.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better
Yeah.
myself. Many don't actually do that.
Yeah, that's where it goes wrong. Everybody wants to win every battle, every time, and then that becomes
Lose the war.
a disaster.
In terms of organizations and new leaders, and you've said a lot today, but if there was one or two that you could pick on for emerging leaders, because we have our conditionings, like you said. these
Young leaders right now?
Young leaders.
Difficult for me to pick anybody. I haven't come across too many smart young leaders. I mean, there are lots of very intelligent young people in middle rungs of the organization, but at senior level, I can't really think of too many.
What's stopping them getting there?
Maybe they just don't have the right skill set. Maybe the organization hierarchy is still very, I mean, I'm not just talking about one organization
No,
or
no,
another.
no,
I'm
no.
just trying to think of. I think. See, the thing is, again, when you're talking in an organization context, there are so many startups, for example, that have some brilliant guys who have done very well for themselves and very well for their organizations. So a lot of credit needs to be given to them.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'm talking about the more corporate environments
That's
that I've been working in. And in that context, young is people in their late 40s,
Yes,
early
yes,
50s,
yes,
you know. And there are, I guess there are people around, but none come to mind as a standout right now.
Yeah. I guess we're both lucky that the young category is getting into their late 40s and 50s.
Yeah, young is now pushing into the 50s, I would say. You know,
Which could be a good thing.
Yeah, if you look at across
Yeah.
organizations, people like Krishan Balendra, for example, is pretty young. Ruwan Vaidyaratna is pretty young. All these guys, Gihan Kure, then Hydermanis have a whole bunch of people like that. There are lots of youngsters who are coming up, but I can't think of too many like standout
Sure,
leaders
absolutely.
right now.
Why I asked that was I am seeing a demographic in Sri Lanka that there is a generation going above a particular age and the 40s actually taking over some of those positions in the last 1.5 to 2 years. There is no scientific background to this, but it's just a general observation. And in that case, if you were, even if they were in their mid 40s, and which is in our definition now young,
Yeah.
what would be the top 2 pieces of advice you would give them as someone who's been there, done that?
Don't be afraid to break the mold. That's one. Otherwise everybody like Achupang, they had to work in a particular way and do. Don't be afraid to make the work. Take some bold decisions and be brave going out there. Don't like always play conservative and be constrained by the history of the organizations or whatever it may be. It's difficult to, pick 1 or 2 things like this because it's such a broad topic. But the other thing I would be is constantly learn to try and differentiate yourself from everybody else. Try and differentiate you and the organization from everybody else. As soon as you just try to do the same thing that everybody else is doing and the same, trying to dress it up differently and do the same thing and just following the same rules and breaking the same little.
You don't get that.
But the most important thing that I would give any leader is as you become more and more senior, simplify, simplify, simplify. What happens to more people is because they are such control freaks, they need to get more data and more information and more papers and more documents and more and more and more and more control because they are so insecure at the top that they need to have all these millions of documents and millions of people analyzing the documents and giving it to them. That it defeats the purpose. Simplification, as you get more senior in an organization, you think of visions, you think of the future, you put all your experience into it and think of all those things.
Yeah.
And let the next rung and the next rung do the controlling and the managing and all those things. You should be a visionary, you should have a story.
Yeah.
What a lot of leaders lack is to be able to stand in front of their team and tell them a story that is going to make the hair on the back of their neck stand up. You should give them goosebumps.
Yeah.
How many leaders now can do that? They give you goosebumps because you're like, oh shit, this is my boss. And you want to run. But those are things that you need to be a little mindful of. But
Sarinder, I wish this was a series. I have so many things to discuss with you. It didn't almost feel like an interview, but like talking to an old friend.
I'd like
I've
to
had
think
a
we are.
wonderful. We are absolutely. I've had a wonderful time.
Thank
and,
you.
Thank you so
Likewise.
much for being here. It's been a privilege to watch and learn all these years from the way you've
I'm
led
still learning
others.
myself, Roshan, and I appreciate all the help that you have given me over the years, and I look forward to the next few years as well.
We'll
Not
both
few,
be-
many years.
Many years to come. Good luck in your new
Thank you.
venture.
Thank you.
And good health
Thank you.
and strength and vigor be with you.
Thank you very much, and with you.
Thank you.
All the best.
Bye bye.